Hey Roberto, let's take a look at this new set of essays you have written today. The first one is the cover letter, so let's see what you did here. Dear Sir, Madam, I'm writing in response to the LinkedIn advert for a supply chain manager position at Johnson & Johnson. I feel really motivated for this job and truly believe that it fits perfectly with my previous experiences and career goals. Among the many reasons that drive me to this position, the well-known health work environment stands out. Healthy work environment. Okay. Furthermore, the opportunity to work in a company that sells products that can effectively save lives really excites me. All right. So I want to go through this a little bit. First of all, this is all fine. If there was anything that I would like to see a little different, it would be this here. I feel really motivated. That kind of language feels a little conversational and not quite as formal as I would like. So I would like to see that, like I said, a little higher level, a little more formal, a little more advanced. I feel really motivated is the problem here. I have great motivation for this position, or I feel very enthusiastic about this position and believe that it fits perfectly with my previous experiences. There were other things, but again, I feel really motivated. Just felt to me like it's something we would say to a friend, but doesn't really belong in a formal cover letter. Okay, now this is okay, but it is something that you have to read at least a couple of times to make sense out of it. So among the many reasons that drive me to this position, the well-known healthy work environment stands out. I just felt like it was, a little not the most natural way to say this, and somebody has to read it at least a couple of times to make sure that they understand it. So you could say, while there are many reasons that inspire me to apply for this position, the well-known healthy work environment stands out. That would be okay, perhaps. And this too, this really excites me. It just feels a little too conversational, okay? So let's try to show enthusiasm, but not with language that sounds like more like what we would say with friends over coffee. Let's see if I can come up with something, some sort of alternative for you. Furthermore, the opportunity to work in a company that sells products that can effectively save lives is one that appeals to me immensely. Okay? It just doesn't sound so informal. I have been working with supply chain planning for the last 10 years in a great variety of business environments and in different roles such as demand planning, detailed scheduling, and project management. Additionally, I am also certified in production and inventory management by APICS. Throughout these years, I have proven to have great analytics skills, to be a supportive team player, and highly people-oriented. Thus, I understand that to be a supply chain manager is a natural next step for me and is something I have been working hard for. Please find attached my CV for more detailed information on my abilities, and previous experience. I look forward to hearing from you regarding the next steps of the selection process, not selective process, the selection process. It's two different things. Yours faithfully, okay, and then that's fine. It's very nice. I really liked it, actually. I know I spent a decent amount of time talking about a couple of little mistakes, but quite honestly, it was well developed. It was interesting. So it was well done in general. Okay, good work. You definitely covered all of the points that you were supposed to cover. So again, I'm really happy with it. Let's take a look now at your second essay. Okay, so now let's go to your task 2. It's the one about spending a lot of money on essays. I'm interested to see how you develop this because a lot of people have a problem with the benefits part of this, so let's see what you did here. Couples throughout the world have debated whether it is worth it to place a considerable amount of money on the wedding ceremony. This essay will discuss both sides of it, using the examples and arguments to demonstrate that the pros might outweigh the cons. Okay, fine. There is ample evidence that many brides and grooms frequently spend on weddings more money than they actually own. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, they are moved by their emotions, aiming to concretize their dream. I'm not even sure that's a word. I'll have to check. Secondly, they might be driven by cultural pressure, especially with an E, since the advent of social media and extreme self-exposure. The downside is that many couples turn to loans to fund their ceremonies, starting their married life already with financial debts. For example, recent research from IMF showed that 32% of the American young couples, you get rid of the here, prefer to invest in the wedding ceremony rather than saving for a home. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that many couples spend exceedingly on the wedding and end up in the red. Okay. Although it can be expensive, the benefits of investing in a marriage ceremony, careful with the spelling, cannot be understated. Cannot be overstated, you mean. Not understated, cannot be overstated. This is largely because such an important life milestone should be shared and further remembered, especially with an E there, in the current society where relationships have become disposable and the divorce rates reach astronomical numbers. Additionally, important moments should be celebrated and lived intensely as a way of prolonging life. For example, studies from the WHO show that most mental illnesses, not most of it's just most mental illnesses, are caused by over-focusing on the future and not enjoying the present. Thus, the advantages of employing money, I don't like that word here, employing, spending money on important celebrations is clearly demonstrated. From the points and arguments given, I firmly believe that spending money on weddings is advantageous. However, it must be planned in advance with caution to avoid financial issues. Okay, so let's look at this again a little bit. Okay, I got to tell you my thoughts about that first body paragraph. I was a little confused in the beginning. I was trying to wonder where you were going with it. I didn't really realize until further down, until here, that this was actually your paragraph talking about the negatives of spending a lot of money on weddings. And the reason why is that this doesn't really, how can I put this? This isn't really a topic sentence that shows that this essay is going to talk about the disadvantages of this. Instead, the way you phrased this topic sentence, it sounds more like the reasons why people spend a lot of money on weddings, okay? And that's exactly how you ended up developing it. You started talking about the reasons why, but that wasn't what the essay was asking you. It was asking you the advantages and the disadvantages of this. So for me, a more appropriate topic sentence here would have been, there is ample evidence that spending a lot of money on weddings has many disadvantages. And then one such disadvantage is this, and then explain why it's a disadvantage. Another disadvantage of spending extravagant amount of money is this, and then explain why it's a disadvantage. So that focuses much more on what the task has actually asked you rather than what you did. At least in the first part. Like I said, I understood where you were going when you got here, but still, I mean, I was about 4.5 lines down until I understood that this was your paragraph detailing the disadvantages of this trend. Let's see. And essentially, what did you tell us about the disadvantages? You essentially said that there's one disadvantage. You said that many couples turn to loans and therefore they end up in the red, okay? But take a look at this. This is asking you for disadvantages, plural. Have you really given us multiple disadvantages? Because from what I read, it really feels like you're just giving one disadvantage, that couples end up in debt. So that's something that I want you to rethink. I want you to re-examine it and see, well, what else could I have said here as a disadvantage? Because it clearly asks for more than one. Okay? And then maybe how you could have refocused this a little bit to focus more on disadvantages rather than the reasons for this, this excessive spending. Now, as for the second body paragraph, it was a little more appropriate, but I still did have some concerns. You talked about a life milestone that should be valued, remembered, should be celebrated and lived intensely, but never do you explain to me why spending exorbitant amounts of money is vital and is necessary in order to have these things happen. Okay, so why do you have to spend a ton of money on a wedding in order for it to be remembered and valued and an experience that is lived intensely? Do you understand? So somebody could very easily argue here that, well, I can spend a little amount of money and be with close, cherished people and still have a memorable and valuable and valued experience. So be careful here. You didn't really talk about this idea of how this is an advantage, okay? And remember, we're supposed to be talking about multiple advantages. So think about this as well. I mean, did you clearly talk about advantages here, or did you essentially just talk about one advantage? All right? So that's my feedback about this. I felt like for me the weakest part in this essay was the task achievement. I think that you could probably do a little more to make this a better developed essay. So that's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to correct these and return them back to us corrected, add to your error correction list, and then of course another set of essays. Okay? Thanks very much, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you write.